All right, so today we're going to really dig into this news that came out from the White House about tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China.
Yeah, it's a big one for sure, and I think the White House is really trying to make a statement with this by calling it a response to a national emergency caused by illegal immigration and drug trafficking, especially with the fentanyl crisis.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, 25% tariffs on goods coming in from Canada and Mexico, 10% on those from China. That's a big deal. But then they carve out an exception for Canadian energy at a lower 10%. Seems like a lot of mixed messaging.
Well, it's certainly unusual, and the whole idea of framing trade as a privilege that can be revoked is pretty
Ah,
striking. It's like they're saying,
right.
hey, if you don't play ball with us on border security, we're going to hit you where it hurts.
It's definitely a very America first kind of move. I mean, the White House even said that past administrations haven't been tough enough and haven't taken full advantage of America's economic power.
Yeah, and they're making it clear that they see tariffs as a way to force these countries to take action. It's all about leverage, right? They're basically saying, we hold the cards here and we're not afraid to play them.
And they're not shying away from the human side of this either. They're talking about the huge number of fentanyl-related deaths each year and the devastating impact it's having on communities.
Oh, absolutely. Those numbers are truly alarming. And it's understandable that people are looking for someone to hold accountable. But at the same time, we have to be careful about jumping to conclusions. Just because there's a problem doesn't mean tariffs are the automatic solution.
Right. It's like, will slapping a tax on goods really stop the flow of drugs?
Hmm.
Especially something like fentanyl, which is often made in these hidden labs and smuggled through all these crazy networks. It doesn't seem like a simple equation.
No, it definitely isn't. Drug trafficking, especially with synthetics like fentanyl, is a completely different animal than traditional trade. It's not like they're shipping it in containers through regular ports.
So then what happens? I mean, if these countries decide to retaliate and slap their own tariffs on us, couldn't that end up hurting everyone, like a trade war?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? It's a gamble, and the White House is betting that the benefits outweigh the risks. But there's a real possibility that we could see a tit-for-tat escalation that ends up disrupting supply chains, driving up prices, and hurting businesses on all sides.
So we're kind of left with more questions than answers at this point.
Yeah.
But it's clear that this move has the potential to really shake things up on a global scale.
It's interesting how they're trying to frame this within a larger historical context.
Mhm.
They're saying that past administrations haven't been tough enough on border security or really used America's economic power to its full potential.
Yeah, it's like they're drawing a clear distinction, saying this is the new era, we're doing things differently. And they're really trying to project that image of strength and decisive leadership.
Right. It's all about creating that narrative of America first. And they're connecting it back to some of President Trump's previous actions on trade and even his efforts to combat the opioid crisis.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, look, this isn't just some random move. It's part of a consistent strategy we've been pursuing all along.
Exactly. And they're hoping that by tying it into those past actions, it'll resonate more with people and maybe even kind of silence some of the critics. But I think the real question is, will it actually work?
Right. I mean, can you really stop something as complex as drug trafficking just by using tariffs?
Yeah.
Especially with something like fentanyl, which is often made in these underground labs
Hmm.
and smuggled through these incredibly sophisticated networks. It's not like they're shipping it through Amazon, right?
Yeah, it's not exactly your typical import-export situation.
I,
And the announcement keeps highlighting the huge amounts of fentanyl that are being seized at the border. But how much of that is directly tied to trade with these specific countries? That's a really
Oh.
tricky question.
And even if you could disrupt some parts of the supply chain with tariffs, wouldn't the cartels just find ways to adapt? I mean, they're not exactly known for just giving up when things get tough.
Exactly. They're incredibly resourceful, and they've proven time and time again that they can find ways around obstacles. They could shift production, find new smuggling routes. I mean, in some ways, putting more pressure on them could just make them even more creative.
And then there's the whole thing about Mexico and their role in this. The White House is claiming that the Mexican government hasn't done enough to crack down on the cartels operating within their borders. And they even suggest that there's a growing presence of Mexican cartels in Canada actually producing fentanyl there. which is a whole other can of worms, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. It adds this whole other layer of complexity to the whole geopolitical landscape, and it makes you wonder what the long-term consequences of this could be for those relationships. I mean, will it lead to more cooperation or just more friction?
And we can't forget about the human element in all of this. I mean,
Yeah.
these tariffs aren't just some abstract economic policy. They have real impacts on people's lives, their livelihoods.
Absolutely. And you have to wonder, could these tariffs actually end up making things worse for some people? Like, could it push more migrants to take even riskier, more dangerous routes?
It's a tough situation for sure. The White House is presenting this as a bold action to protect American lives and interests.
Right.
But the reality is much more complicated than that. We're dealing with a problem that has so many different facets. It's not something you can just solve with a single economic tool.
Right. It's going to take a much more comprehensive approach than that. You need domestic policies, international cooperation, and a real understanding of the root causes of these issues. Tariffs might be one piece of the puzzle, but they can't be the whole solution.
So we've really dug into the details here.
Mm.
I think it's important to kind of step back and look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
What does all of this really mean in the grand scheme of things?
I think you're right. At the heart of this, it comes down to how we deal with these global problems, problems that don't care about borders, issues like drug trafficking and illegal immigration.
The White House seems to be saying, hey, we've got this economic power, and we're not afraid to use it to get what we want. But is that really the best way to go about this?
Yeah, I mean, it does raise some serious concerns about unintended consequences. Are we just going to push these problems underground, make them even worse? And could it even create more instability or conflict in the long run?
And even if we leave aside the global implications, there's the moral side of things, too. These tariffs aren't just abstract policies. They affect real people, their lives, their families.
We can't lose sight of the human cost of all this. Behind all the statistics and the political debates, there are real people struggling with incredibly difficult challenges. We need to remember that.
It's clear that there's no easy fix to these problems. But hopefully by talking about them, by really diving into the complexities, we can at least start to have a more informed conversation about how to move forward.
Exactly. We need to think beyond these simplistic solutions and really engage in a meaningful dialogue, consider all the perspectives, and as individuals, we have a responsibility to stay informed, to question assumptions, and to advocate for policies that are both effective and ethical.
Well said. I think that's a great point to end on. In a world that's becoming more and more interconnected, we need to find ways to cooperate, to work together, to address these shared challenges.
Absolutely. Isolationism and going it alone are rarely the answer. We need to strive for solutions that work for everyone, that recognize our shared humanity.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this has given you a new perspective on this complex issue. And don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth analysis of the latest news and events shaping our world. Until next time.